Okay, it is 6:33. I will give it, who did you say is taking minutes, Brendan? I've got it.
Sean is taking minutes, but it looks like he has not
Yeah, let's give
shown
him
up
let's
yet.
give him 2 minutes.
It also does not look like anyone has signed up as a backup volunteer, so I think this is
Let's give
where
him, do him.
to plug in the fact that it's important for people to sign up for minutes taking duties both as a primary minute taker at least once and a backup minutes taker at least once. That way, if there's a situation like this where the person scheduled to take minutes does not show up, then someone else can seamlessly step in and take minutes.
Okay, so I noticed we have Neil is not, can we upgrade Neil? Oh, Neil's here. Thank you. All right, I just want to make sure Neil was in as a panelist. Okay. I would like to give, well, it's 6:35, so. Okay, so we're going to need a volunteer to, and Abby was good enough to do it the last time. Who has not taken minutes recently, Brendan? Can you tell just by looking?
I would need to look.
That's okay. Would someone, could someone volunteer, Phil or Neil volunteer?
Yeah, I'll do the minutes.
Thanks, Neil. I appreciate it. Okay, as I said, since people have bothered to be here on time, I'd like to start on as close to on time as possible. So it's 6:35 p.m. and I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's the Community Board 6 Youth and Education Committee, and I believe this is the first meeting of the Youth and Education Committee. I'm John Keller. I'm the chair of the committee. The meeting is called to order at 6:35 with due notice that so many people bothered to be here on time. And tonight we are joined by Community Associate Brendan Berth and Community 6 Board Chair Kyle Attai. Thank you, Kyle, for being here. Members of the public, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through the Q&A feature of Zoom. If there's time following the committee's discussion, and I think there will be, we will field questions from the public. Neil Barclay has volunteered at the last minute to take minutes tonight. Thank you, Neil. You all should have received several emails from the board office with a link to a Doodle sign-up sheet for minutes takers at committee meetings this year. For your convenience, the link for this committee is also being posted in the chat right now. At the direction of the board chair, each committee meeting must have a designated minutes taker and a designated backup. And I'd like to thank Neil again for backing up tonight. And I guess this is the reason we have a backup. To eliminate the guesswork, make sure that the volunteer for as many slots in the Doodle sign-up sheet, you make sure you volunteer for as many slots in the Doodle sign-up sheet as you can. If more than 2 people sign up for a particular month, the office will make sure to distribute the duties equitably, and we'll let you know in advance which months you're due to take minutes. If you have not already filled out the Doodle, please do so right away. The link to the Doodle sign-up form is currently in the chat. So now would be a good time to fill it out. That is a not so gentle hint.
Hey, John, this is Sean Sherman. I'm very sorry I'm late. I was putting my daughter to bed.
I know. I heard the end of the doodle speech, which is, I assume, about me, at
Oh,
least
no,
partially.
it's not partial. Okay, so Neil, you are off the hook. And you've
Sorry,
also,
Neil. Sorry, everybody.
And you, Neil, you have also already done the duty as backup, so you're one ahead of everybody here on the committee. All right. Okay, so Sean Sherman, who is now present, has volunteered to take minutes tonight. Let me call the roll, and I'm just going to do it down the sidebar here. Phil Napolitano.
Yes.
John Keller here.
Wait, John.
Yeah.
I can
Okay.
take attendance.
Oh, okay. Brandon will take attendance. Okay.
Committee members, I will call your name and you will unmute yourselves. When your name is called, please say present. I will announce if there is quorum.
This was on the second page of the notes, so I missed it. Very good, Brandon. Thank you.
No problem. John Keller,
Present.
Abby Cruzmark,
I am here.
Azia Badi, Elvi Barroso, Phil Napolitano,
Yes. Present.
Sean Sherman,
Present.
Cleto Winfield,
Present.
and Neil Barkley.
Here.
We have quorum.
Oh, wow. Okay. And I noticed that Elvie was missing from the last exec meeting. I hope she's well. I hope there's nothing that's keeping her from attending these meetings, because she's usually so good about that. So I hope she's healthy and well. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and is reflected on the screen in front of you. If there's no objection, we'll adopt the agenda. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, you may raise your hand through Zoom. And I just check the Zoom here just to see. I don't see any raised hands. So since there is no objection, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. And thanks to the good memory and hard work of Abby Cruzmark, the minutes from the November 24th meeting were distributed ahead of time by the board office. If there is no objection, we will adopt the minutes as drafted. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the minutes, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Hands raised. Okay. Seeing no objection, the minutes from the November 24th meeting are adopted. They will soon be available on the CB6 website. And you can see the agenda there. In order to conduct some ground rules and efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor, though because of the size of this committee, I'm usually pretty, flexible on that. Committee members, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. If you click the participants icon, the participants panel should appear, and you should find the raise hand function there. If you still have technical difficulty, click the chat icon and relay your difficulty. Otherwise, just say, hey, I want to talk. The chat function should not, this is important, the chat function should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. This is a public meeting, and members of the public can be viewing this on YouTube, and therefore everything that we discuss among ourselves should be public. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information, like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. When a committee member is given the floor to speak, I'll identify you and you can unmute yourself so that you can speak. And we're required by executive order to create a, that means by the governor, I guess, to create a verbatim transcript of the meeting, so please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. We're going to follow the order of the objective of the agenda. The chair's report is very brief. This is the first meeting of the Youth and Education Committee as the Youth and Education Committee. Therefore, I think we should, with any input from the public, define our role and how we see this committee as it moves ahead. So I would like to start. The first item on the agenda is the review of current issues impacting New York City public schools. But as part of my chair's report, I would like to ask each member of the committee to describe first of all, if you have any children in New York City public schools, or any school-age children, any children who are not of school age and may eventually attend New York City public schools, or if you have children who have graduated from New York City public schools, or if you happen to have been a principal in a New York City public school or an employee otherwise of a New York City public school, I'd like you to mention that when you introduce yourself. So I'll start just to give everybody a moment to think, and then talk a little bit about your own personal interests in the issues that we're responsible for in this committee. And all of this I'm putting under the chair's report. My name's John Keller. I have two kids who are seniors in New York City public high schools. They attended K through 12 in New York City public schools. I myself have been very involved in New York public schools as a elected member 3 times of the Community Education Council for District 2, and I once figured out that I stood for various offices in public schools a total of 13 times. So I won't elaborate on all of them, but I am now currently vice president of the Parents Association at Stuyvesant High School and elected member of the school leadership team at Bronx High School of Science. For the record, I'm a founding member of Place NYC, which is an advocacy group for expanded schools for gifted and talented kids, expanded schools for specialized high schools, and in general expanded the school section of schools with rigid curriculums across New York City. So my focus is highly on education, and I've been on the public record many times in different meetings of the state and assembly and state senate meetings and meetings with the mayor and the chancellor on many issues. So that's where my interests lie, and I would like to just go around. And to me, it's a room of Zoom here, but I think I will try to be as alphabetical as I can. And I think Neil Barclay is, Neil. Could you describe your interests in the issues that this committee deals with? And you'll have to unmute yourself. There you go. Thank you.
Hi. So I have a 7-year-old, and he was in New York City public schools. He's no longer in there. He's in a private school now. So I do understand what the public school is, what the student body is made up, and some of the challenges that the kids face. And so that was one part of my interest to become involved with the, I guess it was the Health and Education Committee at that time. And I think now major concerns are, issues that, that I'm interested in is homeless children, children in transitional housing, the challenges that they are facing. And I would say that's the big one for me right now. Just, the Wi-Fi issue, the remote issue, having a place to stay, clean clothes, place to wash their clothes. So that kind of grabs a lot of things that I'm concerned with there.
Thank you, Neil. And hope my alphabetizing is correct here. So Abby Kruzmark, could you talk a little bit about your interested issues that this committee is dealing with or could deal with?
Sure. So I don't have a connection to children in public schools, but I've been on the committee since 2017. Interested a lot in sort of food security as it relates to schools and school lunch programs and other meals. We had someone on in November who talked a lot about that, and I'm sort of interested in following up there. I generally am just, curious to learn more and see how schools can really be a hub for the provision of sort of community services writ large. So that's it.
I don't know.
Jen, I think you're on mute.
Phil Napolitano, Phil, if you're there, I think you're muted, as I just was.
I'm here now. Thank you, everyone. I am not a graduate of the New York City public school system, nor do I have children currently enrolled in it, nor have I been an employee. But I may have children enrolled in it in the future. And it concerns me I would like to learn how the system currently works to distribute resources across the different districts of Manhattan. And right now, during the pandemic, it's my concern to address where certain geographic areas or groups of students don't have access to the resources they need to best maintain their learning to the extent that that's possible. And I hope that my work on other committees and perhaps professionally can help the students and parents of CB6.
And Sean Sherman. Sean, if you could talk a little bit about what brings you to the Youth and Education Committee and what interests you have that you're interested in our addressing. And Sean, you have to unmute yourself.
I'm very sorry about that.
I just did the same thing.
You can probably hear my daughter in the
Oh,
background.
you'll see you have a child who might be a member.
I'm now sitting in her seat. She's 2 years old. She is in daycare, but will be in public school in the future. I am a product of New York City public schools, and those are not. I mean, I'm obviously really interested in public schools and youth education. I would be and was before I had children. I think they're incredibly important and useful, necessary institutions for New York City and building community. So happy to be involved.
Sean, where did you go to school? The public school?
I'm from Staten Island, so I went to public schools in Staten Island. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'll let you get back to our future student there in the back.
She's listening intently.
Oh, I'm sure they don't miss much. Claude Winfield. Claude, could you tell us a little bit about your extensive background in our schools? And,
Yeah, I'll try to be brief. I grew up in Harlem, attended elementary school and junior high school there. I left the public school system to go to a private school from junior high school. I taught elementary school in Harlem. I taught mathematics in District 2 at what is now Hunter High School, before it was Hunter High School. And I got accessed and went to teach out in Brooklyn in the Flatbush area. And I became an assistant principal teaching mathematics and running a department of mathematics. and I became a principal for 15 years with one of the largest middle schools in New York City, a school of 2,000 kids. That's about as brief as I can be. Oh,
Go on, please.
one other thing. I was a union officer
Okay.
with the CSA, that's the principals union. I was on the advisory committee and helped negotiate a couple of contracts.
Thank
with
you
the
very, and Claude, you're welcome to speak as long as you want because of your vast experience. I think I've covered all of the committee members. If any of our guests want to talk about their association with the public schools at some point, I'm always welcome to their input as well. I know that Ozzy Abadi, who's a member of this committee, has a kid in public schools and is very interested in policy related to public schools as well. And I know that Elvie, who I hope is still a member of this committee, I'd be delighted if she still is, you know, does not, you know, has relatives who are deeply involved as students in public schools. So we have a lot of interest in the committee. And Abby was quite right to remind me of the food security issue that was brought up in November. And I will plea that I just helped my two sons work their way through the college process since that time. So I forgot to get it on our agenda, but it will be on our agenda. Brendan, could you put our agenda up just so we could move ahead here and finish the meeting in a timely fashion? Okay, so the first thing I wanted to do was review the current issues impacting New York public schools and the key players and key constituent groups, and the discussion of our possible role in addressing these issues. Brendan, I sent you two slides earlier today with some information on them that I'd like to just go over briefly, if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen and displaying the first of those two.
Sure, it's
Thank you.
this one, correct?
Whichever one is fine. Okay. This is, whenever you're dealing with our public schools, it really is necessary to be aware of the, you know, how things are organized. I won't spend too much time on this slide, but obviously we have a chancellor at the top. And then you'll notice, interestingly enough, Lorraine Grillo, who's the head of school construction, the School Construction Authority, you know, is noted next to the chancellor because the School Construction Authority is technically independent, but you know, certainly deeply intertwined with the Department of Education. And I also note that for a fact because one of the issues that we're constantly dealing with here is the work of the School Construction Authority at the Washington Irving campus schools. So I just observed that, you know, they are deeply intertwined with us. Then there are two sides to the organization. There is on the left-hand side of your screen, basically this is, you know, the operations. If you were looking at a corporate org chart, this would be the operating units, okay, of the corporation. And it's divided into by boroughs. Brooklyn is divided, and Queens are divided into North and South. And then you have Staten Island, and for some reason, Manhattan, which is huge, also is under one group. And there are executive superintendents who are really key people in how the schools run day by day. And the one I know well is the executive superintendent for Manhattan, Marisol Rosales, and we are so fortunate to have someone as competent and you know, thoughtful as Marisol. But she has a huge brief. You can see she's got 6 districts under her, plus all of the high schools in New York City, including the specialized high school and CUNY, the Urban Assembly High School. So she's got quite a brief under her. And then under each of them, there are superintendents for each district. And then under them are the principals. So, that's the operating, side of the organization if you're looking at it as a corporate org chart for the moment. Then on the right-hand side are all of the, what would be called, the functions of the organization. There's a chief academic, and many of these are new appointees by the current chancellor, and there has been, even though there are people who have been in the system for a long time that are holding new roles. And there has been some turnover, which has been, covered in the media in these roles, and no need to get into any of that. The people who really influence the day by day and things that we are thinking about here is the Deputy Chancellor for Early Education and Student Enrollment is Josh Wallach. And Josh Wallach has student enrollment under him, and he is a very important player in terms of admissions and a lot of the issues that we'll probably be touching on this committee. Karen Goldmark runs school planning and development. District planning comes under her. That's an important function within the organization. But so it's very much like a corporate organization chart. You have a chief academic officer who's responsible for overall quality of education in our schools. Chief operating officer who has a human resources, finance, legal. I mean, this is all pretty much what you would see at a corporation as well. LaShawn Robinson, the Deputy Chancellor for School Climate and Wellness, that plays a very important role nowadays, especially with school counseling support programs, in charge of a lot of the equity and access programs that are helping change so many of our schools, and school health and wellness. So that she plays a very, very important role as well. And then finally, over on the right is the Deputy Chancellor for Community Empowerment Partnerships. And under that comes FACE, which is the family office of that deals with community empowerment in the schools. It deals with all the CECs, the press office, communications, and community affairs over there as well. So, so if we're thinking about, who, we'll be talking about this in more depth at our next meeting, but with whom we would be interacting, certainly someone, like at Marisol Rosales' role is very important to us. Someone in student enrollment working for Josh Wallach is will be extremely important to things that are of concern to our parents. I'll pause there just in case anyone has a question that I probably won't be able to answer because if it gets it, but I'd be happy to take any questions on this one chart. Okay, Brendan, could you move to the next slide? It's important to know how this thing is organized. And it's, as you can see, it's a large bureaucracy. And one of the reasons that it's so slow to change, and I doubt Claude would disagree with this, is that it is such a large bureaucracy and you need to know exactly where the points are, where you can get in and have some influence on how things get done. And it's laden with jargon and acronyms. I mean, I spent my first 2 years on the Community Education Council just figuring out the acronyms for different parts of the system. What I've done here is I just wanted to show, as part of our discussion tonight, on the left and on the right, how crowded the space is for advocacy here in New York. And I literally put that list of selected advocates on the left together in 10 minutes. just looking, quickly on the internet. And you can see that issues have advocates. So there are 3 groups there at the top, and then I could have put down 7 or 8 who are concerned about students in temporary housing, homeless kids in the city. Then we have groups that are interested. Then we have groups with varieties of perspectives. We have a group like Place NYC, which I mentioned before I'm part of, which is very interested in, rigorous education and maintaining gifted and talented programs. And then we have groups like the Education Council Consortium, which is, takes a very, very different point of view on a lot of these issues. And I know most of the people over there. Teens Take Charge I include because it's begun to play such an important role in the dialogue in our city right now. Class Size Matters is run by a very active woman by the name of Leonie Jamison. It's a fine group. As I don't always agree with Leonie, but she does a lot of really valuable work in terms of keeping the focus on fair student funding and keeping the focus on what's happening to our class sizes. And I worry even more as we deal with the budget cuts, what's going to happen there. And then there are dozens of bloggers who write about these issues. So I include Alina Adams from New York School Talk, not endorsing her over any others, but she's very thoughtful. And, if you want to keep up with what's happening in New York City schools, that's as good a place as any to go. And then I just put down, and then academic groups are deeply engaged, taking views on just about every issue, especially issues related to enrollment. So I include the NYU Steinhardt School, which is very powerful voice in our city. Then at the bottom, I have the major appointed group in the city, which is the Panel for Educational Policy. And just a brief bit of history for those of you not familiar with it. When under Mayor Bloomberg, what used to be the old Board of Education was dismantled for a variety of reasons, which we don't need to characterize here. And he replaced it with two separate groups. One with real power, which is the Panel for Educational Policy. And the Panel for Educational Policy has, I think, 13 members, 7 of whom are appointed by the mayor. So, and the other 6 of whom are appointed by the borough presidents. And I think there's 1 appointed by the public advocate. But you can sell 7 to 6 who controls that committee. This is, if you want to get at the essence of mayoral control in New York City, you look at the Panel for Educational Policies and you look at its structure. This is certainly something that will be on the agenda in Albany, if not this term, because funding will probably be the main agenda item, certainly next term. Then on the right, I just put, just so that we're all very clear that how crowded the space is, the elected parent organizations. And there are 32 district community education councils. And, like Community Education Council for District 2, each one is, you can look up and find. And there are 32 district presidents' councils of the presidents of the parents' associations of all of the schools within their district. So the president of PS 59 and PS 116 belongs to a district president's council. It meets every month, and I kind of have a fair degree of influence if it takes a united voice on something. And then there are citywide councils on high schools, special education, English language learners, District 75 schools, which are very focused special education schools, because special education in New York covers a wide range of topics, ranging from someone who has a minor reading disability to autism to dyslexia, all the way up to needing, serious care every day just to getting to and from school and, in a wheelchair and with breathing apparatus helping them. I mean, and you can find all of those there. I think I gave a link for all of the citywide councils down there. Then there's the Chancellor's Parent Advisory Council, which is elected by the presidents of the PAs. That the Chancellor does actually attend nearly every month, and is a point of access for parents. And then in addition, every parent association has an executive board and a school leadership team. So I put that up just to emphasize that there's thanks, Brendan, unless people want to go blind looking at that, we can take it down, but and it'll certainly be in the notes related to this meeting. Just to point out, this is a very crowded space. So what I want to talk about, as I have in the agenda, is what is the role that we can play in all of this. Now, if you think about the current issues that are confronting our schools, two of them are in the papers one way or another every day. And one is, access to, during COVID, access to Wi-Fi and computers that can actually connect with the internet. And we still have, and I think I read, and I know Phil has been involved in this, but Neil has been involved in this. I think we still have 5,383 students who don't have adequate Wi-Fi access, which means, if they're not in the classroom, and we have hundreds of schools closed down, how are they learning anything? And one of my friends who has, young kids, and I think I said this once before in this committee, sits with her kid, during remote learning and helps her use her pencil and pen. And she said, but John, there are hundreds of kids in this city that have not had a pen or pencil in their hands since last February or March. And, what are we going to do about those kids? So there are real issues related to access to homeless kids, access to technology, and all of the issues that have come up that affect a much broader group of kids brought on by COVID. And this is all going to be exacerbated by funding cuts, with the state and city revenue streams down so far. Then the other big issue that is in the news is how we are going to admit kids to middle schools and high schools, and whether we are even going to continue with gifted and talented testing for kids. And this is something that I know is on the mind of parents. And we're very fortunate in Community Board 6. In most of our schools, I know one or two of them have some issues related to homeless kids. And we've been on the Community Education Council, we were dealing with it right down to the level of trying to help them get their clothes washed, by going to laundromats and getting cards for them. But for most of the parents, many of the parents in just Community Board 6, our zone, middle schools are a very important issue. They're accustomed to being able to have the choice of being able to send their kids to Lab Middle School or Salk or the special progress programs at Baruch or Wagner or Eastside Middle or a number of other schools, and that is all changing now with the state testing taken away this year for COVID reasons, and then we just saw in the paper today and yesterday that the Board of Regents is proposing doing away with testing next year as well. So this is a big issue. So these are the issues that people are thinking about, and I just would like to get any thoughts or feedback. That went a little longer than I thought, but the issues are really complex. And certainly the admissions issue is one that, I've been talking with Kyle about figuring out how this committee can address, but just looking for any feedback from members of the committee on anything that I've just said. Okay, because I would like to see our committee deal with one or more of these issues, and so I'll put it on my plate to come after speaking with Kyle to the next meeting with a proposal on how we can talk about middle school admissions, which is on the minds of people. And I know that dealing with homeless issues related to homeless kids is another issue, and Abby reminded me of the food security issue through our schools. So I'll put that on the agenda as well.
Hi, John.
Yeah.
So I started looking into some of the issues with the kids in transitional housing in our district, and I've reached out to PS 116.
I know. I thank you for that, by the way. Thanks.
So I was wondering if anyone else on the committee, if they want to help out. I'm going to contact the other schools in our district as well, the elementary schools, the middle, the high school, just to feel around to see what some of the other students may be having problems with access to Wi-Fi, and if there's anything there that we could help out with. So if anyone would like to jump on board with me, that would be great.
Neil, glad to help you with that.
Okay, great.
Excellent. In fact, what I would like to see, I'm reluctant to force things on people, but is if we were each to take, say, 2 schools that we kept in regular touch with. And I'd like you to, I don't want to impose that here in one meeting today, but I am thinking of asking every member of the committee to take 2 schools that they would be in contact with and address issues related to budget issues, things on the minds of the principals. And I know we can get introductions to the principals for people who would be interested in doing that. Neil obviously has already taken an active interest in 116. I'm very close to PS 59, and I've started to get to know the principal of the High School of Art and Design, which is also in our district. So I think if each member of the council committee were to take 2 schools and just be in touch with and talk about the issues that were on the minds of those schools, we could sort of break down what might feel like an insurmountable set of problems into something manageable.
Then just quickly, so one question with there, just with speaking with people in the administration at 116, and then Erica Silverman, she's joined our call before. She's the president of the PTA.
Right there, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess just what I was also wondering, and I don't know if this is something offline with you or Brendan or Kyle, is our district, our CB6, are we allowed to work with other districts? There, I guess, rules that we cannot, work with, District 2 or 3. And I just say that because we're speaking with 116 and Erica Silverman, she was just also telling me about other districts that may, I guess, not be in our district, other students that are not in our district, but they do go to 116 and they are facing possibly some of the challenges that we're looking to address, such as the Wi-Fi situation.
Yeah, that's Kyle has his hand up, so I'm going to let him speak.
Yeah, I was going to say, Neil, that's a great point. That's part of what we're trying to do through the committees, and then obviously through me as the board chair. What we want to do is to make sure that we can take care of some of our local issues first, and then build up support through other districts and other community boards to then amplify whatever those issues are and whatever those solutions are. So what I would suggest is, as John has mentioned already, is let's focus on the schools in our community board district. And once we put together whatever it is, plans, resolutions, initiatives, etc., then I can then take that to the other board chairs who I'm already in contact with pretty regularly. So The idea is at the end that we can do something that's more amplified, that's comprehensive, with the support of many different community boards. But I wouldn't go there right away. I would work with the schools that we have within our district first.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think one of the things we're trying to do is re-envision what this committee does. And I think it's going to take more than a couple of months to do that. But I think one of the ways to do it is to really get a handle on issues that are of deep importance to parents and guardians. in our
And
district.
yeah, and just to build on that too. So when John and I were discussing the rearrangement of these committees to just focus solely on youth and education, remember that there are a number of other issues that play into this really well, which is, outside of schools is obviously the most important, but how else are youth affected in our community? So one of the other suggestions and ideas that I threw around was like summer youth employment. That's a program that's very important to young people, particularly as they're applying to other schools, also giving them a productive activity to do in between school, after school programs. These are all very important things. And I know John has, really great ideas to put on the agenda going forward. But what I'll say is, and I talked to John about this, and this is also the, call to action that I'll say to the rest of the members of the committee as well, is that we're seeing right now throughout the city. And that's why I think, it's always important to kind of start off locally and then expanding from there rather than trying to accomplish everything at once. But thinking about how right now, particularly in education, there is a void within the city. We have heard this in committee meetings from members of the public who have come in and said, hey, I don't know what the heck is going on. These are the needs that I have. I don't feel that the city is being responsive to it. And so this is really a chance for us, as I said in the beginning of this for, all of the committees, is that this is really an opportunity for us to take the lead in what we want to see in our schooling and in our education system. And with everything that's going on, with budgets being in flux, with policies being in flux and all of that, this is really the time to kind of put those voices together, to call those stakeholders together and really put something out there that says, hey, you know what, as parents, as students, as other stakeholders in this conversation, this is what we envision in terms of youth and education going forward. And then once we have those resolutions or whatever it is, then we can take it to, other boards and say, hey, would you like to partner up on this? Or how would this affect the schools in your particular district and with your communities, and move on from there. But, I agree with John's approach to all of this, which is, we have a number of great schools that are representative of the city in our district. And if we can show that this, whatever you guys end up putting together is reflective of those needs and concerns and, progress, then I think that's a really big statement, not just for our district, but for the rest of the city too.
Yeah.
I think that's, I was just saying, no, I think that's fine working within the district. I just mentioned that because when I had the conference call with some of the people from PS 116, it then opened up into, I guess, pointing out other schools, homeless shelters. So yeah, that's just why I asked, they were just throwing a lot of different things out there. So just thought I would broach that.
I'm glad you raised it, and Kyle and I, as Kyle mentioned, have discussed this. And education is, I put up that list of advocates. There is a lot of noise, around education, a lot of heat, but not a lot of light right now in the city. And there's an opportunity for us to if we build thoughtfully, to make a real contribution to the discussion. Some of the, I don't want to get into criticizing specific groups, but some of the groups have become quite dysfunctional in terms of their own internal infighting. And, it's quite public. I mean, but there's no need to signal anyone out. But there is an opportunity if we can do this substantively. So I would ask each of you to think about, what would be 2 schools that you might want to just stay involved with, get involved with, and we can reach out to those schools who are within our bounds. And Brendan, would it be possible for the board to send out a list of the schools in Community Board 6. Have we ever finally created that? I know we've talked about creating it.
Yeah, the board office, we do have a list of
Nabby, I
public
see there.
schools in our district. Everything, I guess pre-K or pre-K through 12.
Perfect.
And
So,
John, I'll also say that I've been working with Jesus on something on putting this together as well. So I'll pull you into those conversations as well. And we can continue from there about putting together, because I actually was asking for a list of all of the PTAs and principals. So that's something we're putting together. So I will update you on that.
And Abby, I noticed you have your hand up.
Yeah, just in that vein, maybe like a doodle poll with all the schools would be helpful. So we
That'd be
could sort
great.
of formally sign up.
Yeah, I would love that. And because I've always found that school, anything to do with schools quickly becomes so overwhelming that people say, what the heck can I do about this? You know, so let's get very, very specific. And I would like to thank Kyle for offering a segue to the other point of our agenda that I do want to try to have us finish in an hour, not an hour from now, but an hour from when we started. You know, is that we have invited someone from the Department of Youth and Community Development, New York Department of Youth and Community Development, to our next meeting to talk about programs for kids in the city, and you know how we might play a role as a committee related to those issues, and you know, and so that's going to be at the top of our. That's going to be our first agenda item in the next meeting. Will be a presentation from the Department of Youth and Community Development. I also want us to reach out to and work closely with the Community Board 6's Parks and Recreation Committee, and also obviously with the Homeless and Human Rights Committee, because I think there are two places where we can you know, collaborate on issues that affect all of us. If there are no further comments from the committee members, I notice we do have 3 members of the public in attendance, and I would just like to give them a chance if they would like to, Brendan, if they would like to make a comment on anything that we're talking about here or any issues that they wanted to bring up. Brendan, do we have any, I'm delighted that people just come and
I
listen.
don't-
That's great, but
yeah, I don't see anything submitted in the Q&A.
okay, let's give them a chance though, if they want to speak.
Can I just suggest that any listing of schools should be inclusive, including the PTA, the parent coordinator, and whoever the CEC rep is, so that whoever's establishing that relationship with the 2 schools would know they have those different set of options of making contact.
That's a good point, Claude. And this, if you want to know who the CEC rep is, you could go to the CEC D2 website. And at least when I was on the CEC, every member of the council was assigned, you know, at least one, frequently a couple of schools to which they were the liaison. So that's
I don't know the organizational structure now, but all of the districts used to have a list of all of the schools in their districts.
the district list, right? Yeah, but we're
Yeah.
trying to focus just on our board, within our board, right? Within our zone. And that would include high schools as well as 3K and pre-K. We have, you know, a couple of high schools, and you know, we really do have a fairly good number of schools in the zone. Okay, so is there any other old or new business that people would like to raise? It's coming up on 7:30, and since the purpose of this meeting was for us to get ourselves a little more organized and focused as we move ahead, I certainly don't see the need to extend the meeting past 7:30, but I would like to give anyone a chance to raise anything they might have on their mind.
Excuse me, John. It's
Yeah.
Phil. I would like to just ask if it would be okay initially if I could work with someone approaching the two schools, because I think that would help me to acclimate a whole lot and come up the curve faster than just reading
Oh,
relevant
yeah.
articles.
No, I think what we would do is Kyle has already volunteered to get this list together with the board, and then we would figure out the right way to introduce you going in there, so that you're not going in blind. In other words, oh, hi, I'm Phil. I mean, because to be honest with you, this has happened to me when I first joined the community board. Even though I was a member of the Community Education Council, if I called up and said I'm calling from the community board, 6 weeks later, somebody might take a look at the email, but if I called and said I'm the community board, Community Education Council District 2, oh, they called, they picked the phone up. So we have to figure out a way to get people paid attention to, and then also any issues that are hot at the school that we're aware of, that we can certainly get our hand around. That's a very good point.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next steps out of this meeting are, I've already told you we're going to have someone from the Department of Youth and Community Development, and I know that the office and Kyle are already working on a list, and Abby helpfully suggested that it come out as a doodle where people can sign up. I am formally volunteering for PS 59 and the community college of LaGuardia, the High School of Art and Design myself, because I know them both, and I think if everybody took 2, we would end up with we should end up covering our schools. So are there any other comments from committee members or the public? Okay, well, seeing none, I'm declaring this meeting adjourned at exactly 7:30 p.m. And I thank you all for your attendance and look forward to working together with you as we try to re-envision this committee. Thank you.